Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Lou Jensen, and this is the weekly get-together of the INE Network, Inspiration and Encouragement Network. We've been a gang of wannabe artists and creative people since 1983, and I've done 9 years of webinars to help people learn, discover they have some talent, do what they got to do to develop that talent, and eventually try and target the mastery of something that you can then trade in the marketplace, and then invest the rest of your life learning how to share and trade what it is you have developed as a talent. And we've had a lot of fun with it over the years. All of us that are in the green room with me tonight in the film strip are old members of our INE network, have been participating together for a long, long time. So all of you who are maybe out on the Google Plus account, my Google Plus account, watching, or over on YouTube, welcome. Appreciate you sitting in tonight. We got a good show tonight. It's a special commemorative series that I do every fall as I retired from dentistry and began playing with this hobby that turned into my whole life. The fall time for me is always extraordinary. It's harvest time, and I just enjoy it no end. So we'll get right to it tonight. We've got a special subject that I want to talk about, and we will fire things up here and get that started. Let's see if we can involve you. When I first started this direction, I never would have dreamed it would have taken me where it has and how it's ended up. It started out as such a silly, simple thing, carbon eggshells with a dental drill, and it was just an accident at Easter time, and then it led to one thing led to another, and it just has blossomed into a world that I could not hardly even imagine. And when I started doing the webinars, we were trying to find ways and means to help members of our network who mostly have never done a business on their own and struggle with the business side of the aspects. Just about everybody can learn to do some graphic art and fine artwork, but we can't generally peddle it very well. And so I started the ABA, American Business Academy, that helps us learn how to do the artistic side of the business. So I wanted to do a show particularly tonight on planning and preparing, because it literally is the subject that is often overlooked the most. And you just cannot hold back on this subject. This does determine the large degree of success that people who succeed have, and is usually the reason that people don't succeed. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about some of the variables, and I'm going to try and get you to do some rechecking. This double-checking management method is what a sophisticated business uses to make sure things are covered. Instead of doing it by some accident, what you're trying to do is lift it up into something that happens on purpose. I did this show last year, and we had just finished the Salt Lake, Utah State Fair, and Brian had given his time at the show, and this year he was the featured artist at the show. And Brian has given a lot of his time to these charitable circumstances, and one of the things he likes to do the most is fire up that drill and teach the children that are at the fair how to use the equipment. This year he got to teach somebody that was blind. He literally put the drill in their hand and held their hand in the egg, and they got to carve an eggshell, and the person was literally blind. So it really is such a fun experience. I went up with him last year, and we spent some time together doing this kind of activity and effort in front of the public. But the thing that I always enjoy about Brian's effort is he just reaches out in every direction he possibly can. He literally leaves no stone unturned to help develop and promote the concept. And it's always a lot of fun to play with him. I get to spend a lot of time with Brian over the years and watch his skills develop and his ability to interact with the marketplace, particularly with young people, is just absolutely fun. Uh, when he began to plan on leaving for Europe last year, he had an exhibit in one of the museums in one of the countries in Europe, and he had to take the time and do the preparing and doing the planning to be able to get your whole life from here over to there and then safely return. And that's never an easy thing. From where I started and the things that I've basically played with in my life, I moved from being a dad and I started in dentistry. I went on a mission as a kid for the Mormon Church to Canada. I've been a scoutmaster forever. I've got 4 sons that all went through all the Little League programs of football and baseball and everything else, including scouting. I learned to fly, developed the high-speed drills, sculpted the eggshells, do a little wood carving, did some car windows, learned to do event marketing, and then I formed a company. Every one of these things I've done mostly by plan. All of you that know me, I like to daydream a ton. And we're going to talk about the steps of planning tonight, the review of how you plan and how you go at things, and we'll do a little checking together and see how you're doing. When I learned to fly, it was one of the most exciting times in my life because I've always wanted to do it. But it was a really different process to get in an airplane and get it up and get it down safely. And the way they do it is a checklist. You just have to know everything that's on that pilot's checklist. And if you don't file a flight plan, then you don't really know what the hell you're doing, and they don't like you to be up in the air without knowing who's up there and where they're headed. And I'm going, duh, that seems so simple, except a lot of people don't do it. And guess who are the ones that always crash in the airplanes? Yeah, you're right, the ones that didn't file a flight plan. So when I started messing around with this pilot's checklist, it was really a handy little thing to get in, grab the checklist and check the plane and make sure that every detail was covered before you fired up that airplane and left the ground. So what we're talking about is a degree of planning and preparation that might actually improve the odds of success. I can't understand why you would even bother to do it if you weren't trying to really improve the odds. And this is how Woody and Jack navigate. Both of them are really good at stacking the deck. Why try and make an effort, especially in business, if you're not going to try and succeed with it? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do it any other way. And, oh, you know what? Let me stop and go back and pick up another. I think I picked up the wrong show. I did. I've corrected it. I've corrected a lot in here. Hang on this 1 second. I think I can fix this easily. I hope. Where is desktop? Windows 7 or 10? Windows 10. Here you are. Desktop. Now it's in Success Mountain is where I left it. I grabbed last year's show and I updated it for tonight. So there we go. Okay, now we got the right one. A little different. All right, sorry about that, guys. Just noticed the difference. I'm going, you know what? We don't want to do that way. We want to do it a little differently. Let's see, where are we? Right there. This picture has been in my journal for a very long time. I was literally starting into dental school, and I saw it, and I taped it on the door of my dental school's locker. And I had a couple of cartoons that stayed with me. That was 4 years in Chicago. And you have to just realize that there are times when you make some bad choices, sometimes the dragon wins. And so when we're trying to come in a direction and improve our circumstances, improve the odds, it's important that your calculations are within range. Something that you're doing that is actually proving to work out well. If it's working well, then you don't have to prove it out, but you can usually work on improving it. So someone's got your microphone open. Can you get your mics all shut down? Double check your mics, everybody. This, I didn't realize this was Ben Franklin's quote. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. This is Darwin Dower's favorite quote. And he's got a slightly different version of it. But it still says the exact same thing. If you're forced to go back and do your effort all over again, then you're really constantly making up. And that is not a good sign either. That's a very poor way to go at it. It's always, always, always expensive, very expensive when you got to back and redo your efforts. So wasting time is not a good idea. This is my Grandma Jessie. Grandma was my favorite lady in my life and lived to be 102 years old, and this was from her yard. We planted it up in the house for Tam, and it's been there ever since. Grandma's favorite quote was, "Look twice and weed once." So in planning and preparing and looking at how can I improve my circumstances, this just has to be at the top of the list. You just don't want to go at your future and not have a checklist going on. Somebody check the mics. We still got a mic open. Please, everybody, go up to the top of your screen and make sure your mic is turned off. Mel, can you see who it is and help me out?
Yeah, I've taken care of it.
You got it? Okay, thank you. So we know what this stuff is. We know what we're talking about tonight. This is not a new subject. For all of us who are a little further along in life, each of these concepts we know about them, but we don't always handle them or treat them the same. So tonight what we're after is a new kind of an approach, a way of double-checking your plans or cross-checking to make sure that what you're doing is going to work out and is within range. You never know when one kind act of one word of encouragement will change a life forever. I had an incredible day today, perhaps the second greatest day of my life today. And I just didn't sense that it was going to be the kind of day that it has been, except about 11 o'clock, things just took off. And Chris and I went out and slayed a few dragons today, and it was amazing. Going to have a hard time sleeping tonight. But I've been planning most of these steps for most of my life. I very seldom do things without a fair amount of thought and a degree of planning and double checking. In dentistry, this is huge. You just cannot take the chance that you're going to miss something when you're working on a patient. So your double checking effort on your planning is just absolutely imperative. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not abstinence of fear. It's an issue, but most of us will say, yeah, I got lots of courage, until all hell breaks loose. And then sometimes we're not quite so courageous. I make my lists, and then I bother to check them twice. Santa Claus loves me. Sometimes he does not. I get cold often. This is an old JFK quote, "Time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining." So in this period of time every year, this is harvest time, and this is the time that I enjoy the most out of the whole year. And when you're looking how that's going to work and what happens in the shift of the economy, the fall period of productivity is by far the best quarter of the whole year. From September to December, we do most of the business in this country. Most of the balance sheets shift from no money to profitable because of this quarter of the year. The very least you can do in your life is to figure out what you hope for, and the most you can do is live inside that hope. Not admire it from a distance, but live right in it, under its very own roof. So, last year, Lance was up here at this time, and this is the get her done kind of the year. And he came in and made this huge effort to come and spend some time with Craig and Robin. Lance, can you come on? You're here tonight. Can you come on and describe that period of time a year ago for you?
Sure.
Changed your vision a little?
Well, it wasn't just what I learned, about carving and about, improving my skills. It was just interacting with somebody, folks that are like yourself and Craig and Robin that really have a direction. They really know what they're doing. They've really made a name for themselves. It was kind of exciting because you get drawn into it and you start thinking, how can I be there too? What can I do? And you just gotta. It can't help but get you thinking and get you planning a little bit.
Good. Well, it was exciting to have you here because you made so much progress. And it's a little bit like Jose. When Jose came up one time, he came up and learned to do metal, and we put him under a microscope the first time, and it just changed everything for Jose. It was such a singular moment, and I remember both of your times here and taking some actual practical time with us. It's always amazing. And once you begin to realize there are certain moments that come along that really do change the course of history. Now, I'm going to share with you, and some of you that have been on the shows with me before have heard this story, but this is the one moment. This one really affected me deeply. I've been a Boy Scout leader forever, and one of the things I've always worried about was losing a Boy Scout. And when things are going the way you think they should, and sometimes it doesn't work out, you really have to know what you're doing, or all hell breaks loose and somebody dies. There was many times in my life when I've been on the mountains of Utah or playing in the western United States somewhere when snow shows up almost when it's not expected to, and it causes all kinds of problems. And there was two good old boys in Idaho that it was the last day of the deer hunt, and they grabbed their guns and decided to run up in the evening, about like now, run up in the evening and see what they could find. Last day of the deer hunt, let's run up and drive around a bit. Now, I can't tell you how many people do this consistently, and up to this time, I did the same thing. You treat it so casual, like it's just no big deal, okay? They told everybody where they were headed. But, and you can always tell yourself, what in the world could happen? What could go wrong? They got in a snowstorm. A snowstorm came up and snowed them in, and they couldn't even move their car. And so they stayed in the car for 2 or 3 days and couldn't do well there, so they decided they better start hiking and try and hike out. And one of them didn't have very good shoes on, and his feet started to freeze up. So they went back and stayed it was a van that they were in, and they tried to live and stay in the van. There's no food with a lot of snow. They basically were trapped. The mistake they made is they decided while they were driving up to go 20 miles south and go up a different canyon than what they had told everybody they were going to be in. And so they could not find them. Search and rescue looked and looked and looked and looked. And finally, the one guy decided he needed to get out. The kid got gangrene in his leg, and so his partner. So he left him with the gun, and then he took off. And he went a few miles and found a Forest Service lookout tower, and he broke in, and they had a little bit of food there. But he took his shoes off, and he said he was in the lookout tower for 10 days. Couldn't get his shoes back on. He was in such bad shape, and he about died there too. But he finally kept struggling with it until he got out. And 32 days later, he walked back into town. But because of the circumstances, the police accused him of murdering his friend. When they got to the guy in the van, he had killed himself with a pistol. And it was a .45 Magnum, and he still had it in his hand. And the police accused him of murdering his buddy because of everything that happened. He says, no way you could shoot yourself with that big of a gun and have it still be in the victim's hands. So he went, they didn't convict him, but he went through all of that grief on top of it. And all it was just this moment of no thought. You just grab your nose and jump. And man, that can cause you a lot of problems. And if your life and living this valuable period of time, this is from now till we're gone, is the most valuable period of time we have. And without a degree of plan, what are the odds? And the firmness of your plan and the quality of your planning deserves this double-checking kind of mechanism, this constantly looking back over what you've planned to do, and then this gradual, constant improvement of the plan. From our first engravings, these were the very, very first things we did in photograph, and we've gone 1,000,000 miles since that time. So much better work now than we did when we first started. But for every person watching the show tonight, the biggest issue we all struggle with is we don't know what we don't know. And if you've gone down the road a little while, you think you kind of know everything. When I do my blasting class, there's 8 things that are in part of blasting. And so whenever you get involved with it, you literally try and think, well, I got to pay attention to all this all the time. The material you're using to shoot, the pressure of the pot, the size of the tip controls the amount that's going at it, the shot type, the size of shot, the distance from the surface, the length you're hitting at the exposure time, and then the type and thickness of resist. But out of all of this, the really #1 issue you've got to remember and pay attention to is the choice of artwork. In sandblasting, it really requires high contrast images and really strong, simple line images, line drawings. And it takes a little while for you to learn, what should I pick? If I've got to do this job, what kind of artwork, what kind of graphics am I basically looking into? And you have to pay attention to all of that. To the degree you don't know all of those variables, when you're trying to sandblasting something for the governor of Utah, you better have it right. And if you got 50 of these little puppies to do, you don't want to practice on a really nice piece of crystal and blow it. I do these crystal books often in our area. These are so great for church groups and for legal situations. All kinds of occasions to put on a crystal book, whatever the customer and client wants. And so when I know what I'm going after, I know what I'm starting with, then I know I can have a checklist. I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do that, and then I got to do that. But don't forget this, and then there will be this, and eventually we got to do that too. As long as you're thinking, as long as you're looking at this, you're constantly coming back and double checking yourself. You just can't trust the fact that, hey, I got this, I'm going to be just fine. And if you can separate that and begin to realize that's a big issue, then all of a sudden when you're targeting things and you're trying to pull it off, you begin to realize that what happens in our process up to this date, this targeted kind of effort really starts to make a huge difference. It always impresses me because 9/11 happened the day before I always celebrate the founding of the company on the 12th. And so 9/11 just took over everyone's life, and we all deal with that day now. And then the very next day is the day that I formed the company 39 years ago. And so I kind of know what's coming, but it just shocks me how fast it goes from 9/12 to the end of September. Every time. I talk a lot about August because August is always a pain in the butt. To me, August is the craziest month to be in business there is. Most challenging month that always in my journal. Every time I put, what does August hold? Because August is just crazy. And then September comes along and the world goes back to work. Kids go back to school. Television turns on again. The magazines start publishing. Everybody kind of sort of goes back to work. And man, it goes from September to December so quickly every year. And so without a plan, a map, something you're constantly double checking and seeing, all right, my as-is world is here, and this is better what I'm targeting, and I'm trying to get my world from here to here. If you're not constantly going after that as a concept, you're likely to wander off. That's why a business plan is so critical. It helps you stay on track. This article came out before there was ever a company, and it was published at Easter time in the Salt Lake Tribune, and it was my article about Chris, my son, and this was some of the stuff I'd done for the American Craft Council. And so this moment of exposure led to then this moment, which has literally launched into what now is going to be the rest of my life, is promoting the Handmade Crusade. And in my circumstance, as I would guess in your circumstance, there's times when it's been better and there's times when it's been worse. How in the world did Charles Dickens nail it when he said it's the best of times and the worst of times? Because it often is exactly that. But if you put that aside and in your planning, you're dreaming here, you're looking out in front of your life, you're trying to say, is there anything I could do more, but is there anything that I should maybe do less? Should I start this new project or should I stop this new project? And who maybe would counsel me, and how in the world can I measure my weaknesses and still measure my strengths? This is some wide range thinking, and most people don't do it. They don't do it near enough. I didn't notice Jay got on. Maybe he got in a little bit later, but I put him in there last year, and then I put him in there this year. I want you to notice something. From last year to this year, look what he's done. Okay? Now, if you watch things on Google+, you begin to realize that this is an exponential growth. It's small to begin with, but what it does is grow, and then it really starts to climb. Jason's on quite a bit. I don't know if he's into the show tonight, but Jason's a woodworker up in Maine, or is it Massachusetts? Where is it? Maine, yeah, Maine. And he does some really, really nice work, and he's in our circles, and I like to watch what he does. But he's had a little less growth. He didn't grow quite as much. Had a few more views this year than last year. But this is the measuring. This is the paying of attention to it. With social media now is the only best major marketing tool of exposure there ever has been. And I just sit and think, well, if you ask Jason, he built this studio. Remember last year when he was putting up this new studio space and getting it going? I wonder how he's done now. He's got to be well into making this space a utility. How much planning and preparation did it take for him to actually pull this off? If everyone has a struggle with time and money, then the reviewing of what you do is just huge. You just can't almost do it enough. When Mel goes out, this is his touring rig. Mel, did you put this up? Did you ride this to the conference? Mel just won the National Veterans Award. Can you come on and let's congratulate you for a minute, Mr. Jones? Joins? What was the party like?
Oh, it wasn't too bad.
Not too bad?
No.
How many
Kind of
people?
mellow.
How many people entered? Every state was represented. wasn't it?
Well, out of just over 130 veteran hospitals throughout the U.S., there were 3,000 343 entrants in several different categories.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Look at that. This is what you entered. It's what you entered, and then where's the ribbon now? Got it right here?
Right here.
Right here? Okay.
Yeah.
Fun. So, is this a milestone for you, Mel? This is as good a recognition as you've had in your career, isn't it?
Yeah, I got to make one a little better for next year.
Next year. And if you sense at all that you've done something now, you've crossed the threshold that is really helpful for your ongoing name and
Place
reputation.
ribbon and the medallion.
Cool.
Yeah, they're hanging out here in the studio with all the rest of the ribbons.
Yep. Going to be a lot of fun for you. Well, congratulations, my friend. Proud of you as hell. That's just an extremely strong move.
Thank you much.
And Mel has played with this area because of his background and his career with stainless steel. And then he's pioneered this making of jewelry from stainless steel, which is not a normal jewelry technique. It's got a lot more challenge to it, and Mel's had the background and experience that allows him to be able to actually do this kind of thing. But notice the photography as well. Knows how to use a hammer. That's a good answer. How do you do this? Well, I know how to use a hammer. Mel's taken the photographs. He's took courses to learn how to do the decent photograph, acquired the equipment that he needs. There's this, Mel does this, what we're talking about is this double checking constantly. I suspect you learned that from your career, didn't you?
Yeah, but I don't know, you do it unconsciously sometimes.
Well, you've made it a habit. You've made it a habit. But I'm serious, there's a lot of people that don't do that. They aren't double checking how, here's where I was and here's where I want to be, and double check along the way. They just forget that step and realize, all I got to do is hit it once and then I'm fine. When Keith started working with me and started developing the wood side of the power pen and trying to pull things up in the art world, and then Craig, his son, started doing all our drawing schools and our training programs, it was so fun to see that constant attitude at the studio was how they approached everything. I've been in Boy Scouts for over 50 years and went to the National Boy Scout Jamboree a few years ago. And there's 80,000 boys and men there, and we took 400 from our council and went, and I just told them flat out, I says, I ain't going to go into this big a deal unless Jim Broadbent's in charge, because I'd gone with him before. And Jim Broadbent's an orthodontist, but oh my Lord, was this guy detail-oriented. I have never been around anybody that's just so intent on double-checking everything. So you make your plans, but you double-check your plans in the implementation as well. And it was a delight to go anywhere with him. You got to think how much trouble you can get in. You're taking 400 12 to 14-year-old young men to Washington, D.C. and spend a week with them. You're in for a world of hurt and potential trouble. And when you're trying to consider the stuff that you're doing with Eagle Scouts and all the Silver Beaver recognition people that are in the marketplace, I've played aggressively with scouting, all the way from one thing to the next. I've given so much to scouting, and I enjoy it immensely. But my biggest single fear always was taking these young men out into these kinds of circumstances for fear I would lose one of them. This was, we were hiking in the Grand Canyon, and I had a bunch of the boys and a couple of the dads, and what a trip, what a trip. These kids, I wonder where they all are tonight. They survived that trip with us at least. I don't know how it's been for them since. Took us a year to plan and prepare, but what a fun time. And I carved this walking stick right here. Steven Spielberg was presented this stick at the National Jamboree by the president of Scouting. and then he took it with him everywhere he went at the National Jamboree. Spielberg says and maintains that scouting literally launched his film career, because he would make videos of their scouting trips and activities, and then he would make funny shows to present in Scouts that night, and he was an Eagle Scout as well. When I did the Canadian project for Queen Elizabeth, the city of Calgary wanted to have us do 1,800 goblets for Queen Elizabeth as a toast to her, and we went through absolutely crossed every T and dotted every I to try and make this project work out, because it was so important. And yet the person I was dealing with in Canada was the most lackluster and airheaded person I have ever tangled with on a project. Every time I talked to her, it was different. This was different, and that was different, and then we want this different. I mean, it was just unbelievably difficult to work with this woman, and they ended up shipping all 34 cases of crystal to Canada overnight. This was as we just got the project finished, and oh my good Lord, it turned into an absolute disaster. We pulled it off, but barely. It cost them more to FedEx it to Calgary from Utah overnight than it did for the project. It cost them a fortune to ship the project there, and it fortunately wasn't my fault. So if you can improve the odds, and what I'm trying to do is help you realize that maybe how you've done things in the past is not how you should do things in the future. The goal is to get ahead of things, to make it easy on yourself, and to not have it be this crisis mode. Because what we do in the marketplace is a process that requires some time. You've got to decide the artwork, you've got to decide the materials and acquire everything, and then there's a degree of production time, then there's always finish time, and then there's always delivery time, and hopefully you've made a little time in there to collect the money. It just isn't something that can happen really fast and really easy unless you've done it for a little while. All of you know Woody Searle in my life was my mentor, my first mentor, and Woody owned a 12,000-acre ranch on top of Diamond Mountain, and spent a lot of time up on the mountain with Woody, and his living was his life, and that's what caught my attention. I was a very busy young dentist, but I had already started to really struggle with what I had to do every day to provide dentistry. I had to hurt a lot of people every day, and it just bugged me no end. And so I started trying to find a way to improve things, and when I ran into Woody, I went, you know what, I'm going to make my life my living. So if you see an opportunity and you begin to realize there's potential for you, gosh, I've forgotten this kid's name. Oh, maybe it'll come when we're talking here. He was a disabled veteran in the Philadelphia area, and he started engraving motorcycles. And this guy came in one day and asked him if he could do this on glass. And he said, yeah, he could. So he was from Belgium, and he shipped him plane tickets and flew him and his wife to Belgium to start engraving in Europe. And what's his name, Tam?
Paul.
That doesn't sound right to me.
Paul Wolf.
Paul Wolf. Paul Wolf. You're right. Yep, Paul Wolf. Thank you. And who would guess it would grow from a moment where you're doing one thing, and then all of a sudden opportunity just splits the Red Sea for you, and everything begins to really, really change. Paul was very, very good at measuring his progress, as is Rick Nichols. Rick's one of our masters as well, lives in Arizona now. Rick was so meticulous it was scary. He measured every dollar in and every dollar out, and he just liked it. That was how his brain worked. But he would show me how things were all the time. And his first goal was to earn his money back. So he kept track of how long it took him to earn his money back that he invested getting started. Then he said, I wanted to see how, because it just went flying by that, Then he said I wanted to see how long it would take me to get my money back in a year. Then how long it would take me to get all my money back in a month. And then it went just flying past all of that. And he ended up getting the Rolex account in the whole LA basin. So if you buy a $40,000 wristwatch and want it engraved, Rick Nichols is the one that does that engraving. And if you just sense at all that it doesn't hurt you to have a plan and double check and make the effort to constantly verify what you're doing and where you're going. Sarah Raines was our first master in Dallas, and she's passed away now, but Sarah had the same kind of an inclination. She was extremely thorough at everything she took on. She crossed paths with Ross Perot, and Ross Perot, as you know, is a megabuck gazillionaire in Dallas, and that just changed everything. All of a sudden, she was doing some very significant work for a wealthy, wealthy, wealthy patron. So, I preach constantly that the number one goal in your life is to gain control of your own time. More than being rich and famous, controlling your time is the most incredibly great way to grow there is. But you'll never get here without a degree of control of your planning. It just is not likely to happen. And I also preach this concept often: that which you cannot measure, you cannot manage. It just doesn't work any other way. And so as we go through the checklist of how to make a good plan, try and watch for where you're not so good tonight, okay? Try and watch for the weak link in the toe chain. Number one, you got to have an idea of where you're going. Number two, it's really important to narrow down the scope of where you're headed and what you're going to try to accomplish. Focus it if you can. Shoot at a specific milestone along the way, or milestones, so you can kind of measure and see that you're making progress. I got to get to here, and then I got to get to here, and then I got to get to here, okay? Then you got to rough out a list of how am I going to get from here to there. If you know where you're going, this is your as-is world over here, and better is over here, then kind of what's the step-by-step plan, and rough that out. Then you break every effort into manageable pieces and start to build a timeline. I'm here now, I want to be here, and then here. Nope, I got to divert from here to here, and up over to here, and then down over to here. So you make a little timeline. Then you start to try and schedule every element that would make it from here to here to here to here, okay? I went through this checklist today. I went through it very carefully on a really important concept, and that was so cool because I'm sitting thinking, I'm going to talk about this very thing tonight, this very thing. So for the scheduling, then what you do is begin to gather and prepare what you need and then launch the effort. But once you've launched the effort, that's where I'm now talking about this continuing to double check your efforts. Solve the problems that are in the way, and then revise your position and your progress, and then make the adjustments necessary, and then come back at it again and again. So persistence ends up still being the secret of the entire process. Now, it's one thing to make a really good plan. It's another thing to check it twice. Double check your plans. And if you can really begin to do better at this, I think you pull in this zippy side of living. It's always us that we have the most problem with. Our job today, if you saw my post, is not to fix someone else. All we can do is fix ourselves. But if you can do a better job of getting ahead of yourself by making a better plan, then why in the world wouldn't you, okay? This image has been with me for a while as well, and I love it because our comfort zone is here, but look where the magic happens. If you can't step out, pull your life in a direction that you've not ever experienced before, because this is what keeps most of us. This is our acceptable range. We know what's going on here, and that's what we tolerate and deal with. And the idea that we risk by moving out of our comfort zone, guess where the magic happens? It's something you've got to do it. And if you can just make your brain shift gears from the normal throw mud on the wall to somebody that does more planning, design tomorrow, today, you literally have got a better shot at making something actually work. And we have had, Tammy and I have had people in our life for years and years and years who just, some are so good at this concept and some are so bad. And artistic right-brain people tend to be in that category. They just don't like making a plan and making a checklist, and they hate double-checking it. And I just don't know how to help. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't get somebody even in that degree of productivity that it requires. I'm playing with Creative Zoo. I'm building a lot of things and tools that will work with this direction. But the idea is to try and help you use the talent. Discover you've got the talent, but then get it into a position where we can do something with it. If you're a part of my inner circle, you know that I'm after you to write a book. I think you should all take a drawing course from school or college or high school. It will move naturally from drawing to painting and then to sculpture, and then learn to build something as well. Every soul has more ability to create than they currently think they have. And I hope each of you will measure that into your life. And the idea of the Creative Zoo is to stimulate that. Let's figure out what more talents do you have. One of the greatest things I've done in my life was write my book. And Jose's got his book written, Ron's working on his. Every one of you should be looking at what have you learned how to do. And let's get that into some book form. As we're taking this class Friday night, I'm doing the All-Stars digital marketing sales team thing. This is the last show of that 8-part series. And the goal is to build on-air sales and marketing circle, like-minded gang that can go ahead and influence each other. And if we do a better job of that, we're literally going to have more and more success. And I've learned a long time ago that it helps us more to promote each other than it does to go out and try and take on the marketplace alone. So, succeeding with what it is that is your individual interest, your thread of interest, your passion, is what I think this whole thing's all about. And within the range of time I have left, I am trying so hard to find a way to do inspiration and encouragement television. Our Journey TV. I like the concept, and it's so productive in my own life, and I think there's a few involved in our circle that can testify of that effectiveness as well. Now what we're going to try and do is get on the internet and promote each other. Alrighty, thank you so much. Let's get back to the gang, and anybody that wants to comment and throw their 2 cents into this. Tam, have you got something you want to say tonight, dear?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
See
Have
all
at
those
it.
guys? See all those guys right?
You mean all these old codgers in this screen with us tonight?
They are, and I love them all. Thank you. I want that list of the 12. Will you text it to me?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay.
I sure
I'm very
can.
proud of Mel. I love his bracelet. And Jose, I hope Florida's treating you extremely well. So, very good. Thank you.
And Lance, we need you to come
Anyway.
back. Come back and see us. Good to have you all
All
on
of them.
tonight.
All
Yeah.
of them need to. Okay.
Yeah,
Good night.
absolutely. Good night. Thank you. Anybody else want to throw in a comment, Dean?
No, just waving good night.
Just waving good night. Jose, you should speak up about now. You do a lot of planning.
All right, can you guys hear me?
You betcha.
All right. Well, sometimes you plan and sometimes you have to modify the plans as you go along. You know, I thought that was going to be up and running here by the first week of September. And
Guess
obviously,
what, huh?
I've been changing my plans since, you know, so other things pop up, you know, like life itself. So I have to adjust those
I
plans.
think there's a book about that called The Plans of Mice and Men. Is that not?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that is the issue.
And
If
right
you
now-
if you do a plan but then you don't pay attention to the plan and don't follow the plan to a degree, the odds of succeeding are almost the same as not having a plan, in my estimation. Don't you think?
Right, yeah. And no, you have to have a goal, and like you know, like my whole world has been turned upside down, and it's a little bit scary because of the income that I used to make between November and December over there in Phoenix. It's going to be really scary over here. But then again, you know, we have less bills. We paid off our mortgage. You know, we're debt free right now. So I don't really.
Little more flexibility.
Yeah, and we don't really have to work that hard here. But I love what I do, and I want to be contacting some places that do wine events around the area, and see if I can get myself busy here doing engraving for the holidays. You know, that would be
What if it ends up being even better than it was in Phoenix?
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, Florida's got a better income base than Phoenix has, so let's see.
And one of the
Pick out a wealthy neighborhood and go after it.
Well, this is what I found out. This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
I went to get a haircut, and I'm used to paying maybe $10, $12 for a haircut over there in Phoenix. Over here, they're $19 a haircut.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, mostly everybody here is retired. You know, now after the Memorial Day weekend, everything is coming to a stop. You know, most of the places are closed for lunch around here, you know, because there's not that many people as there were during the summer.
Yeah.
But everybody here, I mean, the houses here are phenomenal. You know, $600,000-$700,000, you know, just north of us, and really nice areas, resort areas around here. So I'm thinking about, you know, I used to charge $100 an hour on my engraving there in Phoenix, and I don't know. That's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. And
We'll have to talk about your fees. It sounds like it's time to raise your fees.
yeah, but you know, to what? That's what the problem is. You know?
You know, when Jill was here from the Bahamas, they were flying someone from Florida to the Bahamas to engrave for the Christmas holiday season. And they had to pay a special fee to get them in there to be able to do it. And then they had a bonus for them, plus the airfare, plus the hotel fees, and paying them $100 an hour. So somebody has got that account, and they're sitting thinking, well, that account's sitting out underneath everybody's nose.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to kind of go after it. I doubt someone's going to shoot their mouth off much about when they got that kind of a job, because, you know, to make me go to the Bahamas, throw me in the briar patch. Oh, I hate going there, but oh, I will if I have to. Jeez,
Yeah.
I don't know. So there's
Beware where you
opportunity.
get the sand.
There's opportunity everywhere. Everywhere. So, all right, gang. I've had a killer day. I gotta take it easy now and just try and coast a little bit. Got a lot to think about. My life changed pretty dramatically today, so it was a lot of fun. I'll catch up with you later, and we'll hit this again next week. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. If I can help you with anything, send me an email, okay? Good night.